Hi, I'm Arthur Zackwitz, Content Director at Corner of Fifth, and welcome to Corner of Fifth's Street Talk. This is where we unpack marketing strategies and explore industry insights and consumer trends in retail, fashion, beauty, technology, luxury, and much more. Today, we have a special guest. We have Marguerite Le Rolland, who's the Global Insights Manager for Fashion at EuroMonitor International. Marguerite, welcome.
Thank you, Arthur, for having me. Welcome, everyone.
Marguerite, tell us about EuroMonitor. What do you do there and the types of clients that you serve?
Sure. So EuroMonitor International is a UK-based independent market research and consulting firm. It's over 50 years old, and we have a total of 16 offices around the world. I am personally based in London, where I head the apparel and footwear and personal accessories research. We serve a number of clients. We work with some of the largest fashion brands and retailers, as well as big consulting firms and investment banks. And we also regularly engage with governmental organizations and academics.
So let's talk about the T word that's on everybody's mind and we can't escape is tariffs. So how would you describe the impact on tariffs on fashion, apparel, and retail, especially, I guess, accessories as well? It's probably having a very strong impact.
Yeah, definitely. I think whether they're fully implemented or not, these tariffs have created a lot of uncertainty around the world, and in particular with these industries with complex supply chains that are very Asia-centric supply chains. So apparel and footwear accessories are impacted. And this is really forcing market players to change strategies in terms of both retail markets and supply chain strategies. So we're seeing a lot of movements from different market players trying to diversify where they sell and where they produce. And we also see some movements, of course, by governments trying to maybe protect their own economies and industries as they fear maybe the Chinese exports will land into their markets, since they need to find outlets for their surpluses if they no longer sell as much in the US.
Well, from your perspective, what are some of the other challenges facing brands and retailers today?
Yeah, there are quite a few, actually. We see that obviously there's some escalating geopolitical tensions beyond the tariffs, but the situation in the Middle East, in Ukraine, we also see climate change that continues and still might not be as much as a priority as before, but definitely shapes some decision for the longer term value creation. And of course, evolving consumer demands and the technological disruptions is changing ways businesses plan for their strategies, collect information, process information, design a collection. So there's been a lot of disruptions that the fashion industry has to embrace and deal with.
So, we say disruptions. It seems like it's never ending. And, ever since COVID hit, we've had supply chain disruptions. We've had inflation creating problems. How do you navigate all of this? It seems like we're in a constant state of headwinds and challenges. How do you navigate that as a brand or retailer?
Yeah, very good question. I think it's fair to say there's been a lot of disruptions over the last few years, and success now really hinges on agility and speed. I would say, and I've heard that a few times before, but uncertainty is the new norm. It's always something that comes and changes the landscape. So market players are very aware of that now. And I would say they're trying to collect information, process it quickly, and that's where AI can help to make quick decisions. I think as well what we see more and more of is how fashion brands are branching out into the lifestyle industry and becoming more of experience and lifestyle-oriented brands rather than just producing tangible goods. And I see more and more so of our clients and prospects looking at finding new pockets of growth. As the growth for fashion in the US and Europe is quite flat and cautious for the next few years, we see more interest in emerging markets. India, Indonesia, Brazil are high target markets on the list, but we also see how companies are trying to find new growth in established and slow growth markets. So in the US and Europe, where it's about capturing market share as opposed to organic growth, companies rethink of their targeting and their market fragmentation and segmentation to understand they're a demographic group that I've overlooked so far. What about the baby boomers opportunity? We know a lot of the Class A consumers, so some of the richest, are actually age 60 and above, for example. So more interest has been put into those consumers. And on the other end of the spectrum of generations, I see a lot of apparel brands also more actively targeting teenagers and Gen Z, but especially teenagers is a new focus group I see. For example, Mango has launched their Mango Teen concept and it's expanding beyond Spain. We see Inditex as well with their lefties concept. So I think retailers and brands are being creative in finding new demographic groups they can target and new pockets of growth in various markets.
But I think the luxury brands learned the hard lesson in China years ago. They tried to go in there without really knowing the consumer. And really, it was there was some failures, to be honest, right? So, what do you need to do if you're going into an emerging market? How do you create that mindset and connect to the consumer that is local on a local level?
Yeah, I think brands and retailers have learned from their mistakes where maybe they went with a one size fits all approach years ago. And now I think they're more and more aware of how diverse and different each market can be, each group within a market can be. I think also with the technology now, they have more tools to be more accurate in how they target different groups. But also, and most importantly, I think they're aware they need to work with local experts. So if they go to India, work with local players, hire local talent, and similarly with China and so on. I think this is something now that is really the new norm again when you enter a new market, when maybe 15 years ago that wasn't the case.
You mentioned emerging markets. Like, would that include Africa, the Middle East, maybe re-examining the Middle East or portions of the Middle East?
Definitely. I think we see a lot of growth potential in the Middle East and in Africa. Nigeria, the Emirates, Qatar, Saudi, a lot of these markets are booming. It's interesting markets again where there's lots of potential for international brands, but also some strong domestic players. We see Primark, for example, has announced they would open in Kuwait and the UAE soon. And on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of luxury brands have been expanding actively as well in the Emirates. And so that's interesting to see how more and more market players invest with physical stores to expand there and not only work through distributors anymore.
In the U.S., the luxury market, I think higher income consumers now make up 60% of all consumer spending, which is like double what it was not even 10 years ago. Is there, for a luxury brand, is there still growth in the U.S. if you're a European luxury brand?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all cyclical and it depends, of course, on your product. We can see, for example, Hermes is still growing steadily in the US. Michael Kors has done really well. I know it's not a European brand, but I think it all depends on the product you developed and your marketing strategies as well. I think there's what we've seen in the US a lot of is how luxury brands go into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities where maybe they were not as present before. They were mostly in the biggest cities on the west and east coast. But now we see that they go more into the inside states and look for the pockets of growth and the wealthy demographics in different states across the US.
Let's just switch gears a little bit and talk about the consumer's perspective and how their journey has changed. What do you see? What are they looking for in a luxury shopping experience, whether you're in Europe or the US? What's the expectation?
I think it's a very good question. I touched on the fact that we see shifting demands from consumers. Maybe their focus is less on tangible goods and more on experientialism, lifestyle. In the luxury goods industry, that translates into really elevating the brand through special experiences, whether it's a special concept store or a pop-up or excellent service levels. I think this is a mix of all that we see. We see a lot of luxury players branching out and expanding into hospitality, for example, or food service, or opening this kind of third space in retail that it's a blending gastronomy with luxury goods and a special experience or concert, and inviting only a few people that feel very special being part of this branded universe. and then wanting to buy their goods, but also and mostly building this brand loyalty through the whole universe and the lifestyle experience, I would say.
And
That's what makes a brand desirable.
the other, I mean, when I think of a store, a luxury store, like I'm more compelled to go to a brand store than sifting through fewer SKUs in a department store, frankly, right? It's a way for me to really be immersed in the brand, and a lot of it is that's part of the experience as well as kind of falling in love and being with that brand physically, right? It's a different experience than just shopping, let's say, right?
Definitely. I think that's where we've seen a lot of brands opening more of their own concepts. However, there are a lot of consumers who still like browsing in the department stores and finding inspiration there across multiple brands and across multiple categories. So I think luxury players see a role in both their own monobrand stores and also the department stores. But we've also seen how department stores had to reinvent themselves. A lot of the department stores today that are doing better are those that offer these experiences, whether it's Saks Fifth Avenue or in the UK, Selfridges. There's been some investment in thinking of different installations, restaurants, encouraging people to take part in some special events on invites only and making it special really to visit the store.
And what about social media? Like what role does social media play in like these experiences?
It's interesting because since COVID, really e-commerce has surged, including social commerce on social media. They have a big role to play in the discovery process, in the research process. I think a lot and more consumers go to the shop having an idea already of what they want because they found out online or before they went to the store. But that said, it's important for the store and the brand to be present in both the online world and the physical world because I feel a lot of the social media feeds interest and curiosity, but ultimately people will be loyal and buying from the brand that offers them the special experience and the community experience. I think I forgot to mention that before in the lifestyle transformation, but a lot of the brands that are doing well today are those that have been able to build a community around their brand. We see that a lot in sportswear as well, where a lot of the brands are using social media to advertise some free running club, for example. And everyone's welcome at the running clubs organized by, let's say, Hoka. And then the runners will, next time they need running shoes, will go for that brand as opposed to another brand.
What about? Can we talk about the resale market? I know luxury goods. It keeps growing. It seems, and to me, there are a lot of challenges. It's for luxury brands to control their product. Is that still evolving? Do you see the resale market continuing to be popular, especially on younger generations?
Yeah, I think luxury brands have been challenged lately with the shifting preferences from the younger consumers, the exposure of some forgery, but also the dupes that have been really successful. As I feel like the younger generations feel they can outsmart the system, have something that looks so good and costs a fraction of the price of the original luxury brand. But I feel again, luxury brands are responding to that by investing in these community-driven and special experiences, events. And I think it's really about elevating the brand so people want that branded product and only that one. According to our EuroMonitor Voice of the Consumer survey lifestyle, people are willing to pay up to 40 to 50% more for an item if it is from a brand that they trust and that has built a community or something special. I think luxury brands are aware of that. The dupes are a problem, but they are responding by really banking on the lifestyle and the community-driven initiatives.
Last question. What is in my perspective, and I could be wrong, is there a deprioritization of sustainability initiatives and ESG? Has that taken a backseat to, so brands could focus on other more pressing issues? And if that's true, why?
Yes, I think just after COVID and Black Lives Matters and a number of events, in 21, 22, there was a big trend of companies really claiming they would change, pledging to change, investing more in CSR and ESG initiatives. And this has gone a bit quiet since last year. That's true. And if we look at the data in terms of investments, I don't see it being deprioritized, but definitely there's less communication about it. However, we also feel like in the boardroom, the discussions have shifted to a lot of more pressing issues like the geopolitical tensions, how this is impacting supply chains and pricing. I think these are the immediate issues that a lot of companies have been dealing with. In the background, a lot of them are aware that the long-term value creation relies on more sustainable, environmental friendly and social friendly, on good practices, whether it's in terms of the environment or labor practices. But I think a lot of businesses are aware this is key for their long-term value creation, because younger consumers are interested in that, but also the reputational damages can be really severe. And finally, the regulation is evolving and continues to evolve, in particular in the European Union, but not only. And I think the European Union is aiming to do in the textile and fashion industries what they did with the consumer appliances industry, where they forced certain tech giants to change the way they were selling their batteries and selling smartphones with a programmed obsolescence. And because they forced that change, it's actually the global supply chains that adapted to that regulation. So a lot of the international fashion companies are also aware of the regulation that is shaping up in the European Union and adapting accordingly. So yes, I think this is still very much in the background maybe of the conversation, but it doesn't mean it's being
Still part
completely
of it.
deprioritized.
But I was just thinking about everything we just talked about. What does it take? It seems like it's so complex and a lot of moving parts, even if you're not looking globally. What advice would you give like an emerging fashion brand to enter the market? What kind of coaching would you suggest?
Yeah, I think the key is to be genuine and to start with a clear product offering and a clear message, especially when it comes to sustainability. How do you do and how did you set up things right? Maybe be transparent about your supply chain and what you want to achieve and what's your value proposition. Is your value proposition about making things right, making things special, having a strong community among your employees because you treat them fairly, and same with your suppliers? I think this can resonate a lot with some customers, and especially for smaller labels and designers that are starting, it's a good way to start building loyalty among fans. And then it gets a bit more challenging when you scale up. I think that's what we see. But if you're just starting, it might be easier to put all the bricks in place and communicate about what you're doing and why you're offering these premium products, but it's because of the way it's done.
Thank you so much. One other thing, what reports, you mentioned one report that you guys put out. How many reports do you typically do throughout the year, and where do I find them? How do I sign up?
So we do have a publication platform called Passport, and on these Passport, which is for Passport members only, or you can also buy one-off reports if you wish to on our EuroMonitor.com website. We publish on average 10 reports a year for the global and regional briefings. So, for example, apparel and footwear, the world market for apparel and footwear, the top trends in apparel and footwear. And on top of that, for our customers, we also publish over 46 country reports, which means for each of the markets where we research the industry, we have a full detailed analysis of the local market.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marguerite, for joining us today. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Arthur.